A very good morning to you, my fellow listeners. On this fine day, I'll be giving you a talk on suicide prevention. Suicide, suicide, suicide. When you mention that word itself, there is a hollow emptiness and darkness that fills the air. Each time we talk about suicide, there is always a tragic story. There is always a tragedy that could have been avoided. The WHO, World Health Organization, estimates that approximately 1 million people commit suicide each year. Can you imagine what a huge number? 1 million people take their own lives each year. So, what drives so many individuals to take their own lives? To those who are not in the grips of suicidal depression and despair, to those who don't feel depressed, it is hard to understand what drives so many individuals to take their own lives. But to a suicidal person, they know because they are in so much of pain that they see no other option. Suicide is basically a desperate attempt to escape suffering that has become unbearable. Blinded by feelings of isolation, hatred, and hopelessness, a suicidal person cannot see any other way of finding relief except through death. But despite their desire for the pain to stop, many of the suicidal people are actually confused. These people don't know what to do. They lack the guidance. They lack the wisdom to do the right thing. They wish there was an alternative to suicide, but they just don't know because they lack the proper guidance. There are a few suicide risk factors that we must all know. One of the most famous, the most common risk factors are psychiatric disorders like depression, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, anxiety disorders, and there's also genetics. For example, if your father committed suicide, there's a high chance that even you will be a suicidal person. And lastly, there is substance abuse. People who are addicted to alcohol and drugs are more likely to commit suicide. I know this seems doomy and gloomy and somber and hopeless, but worry not. Don't fret, because there is still hope. There is a light at the end of the tunnel, and that light is suicide prevention. Suicide prevention consists of all the actions involved in preventing and stopping suicidal people from committing suicide. When it comes to prevention, the first thing we have to be aware of are the warning signs. So what are the warning signs of a suicidal person? Firstly, extreme mood swings. If a person is suddenly very happy and then suddenly very sad, suddenly laughing and suddenly crying all in the same day, that could be a warning sign that that person is suicidal. Feelings of hopelessness. Suicidal people are always hopeless and in despair. They lack the motivation to carry on in life. So if you see someone who is very hopeless, that could be a sign that that someone is suicidal. Thirdly, giving away possessions. Suicidal people are known to suddenly give away things that they like or things that are important to them. For example, they will suddenly give away their cars or their house, their property, their prized possessions because they are thinking of taking their own lives. So be aware of people who are giving away possessions. Fourthly, losing interest in activities. Suicidal people usually lose their interest in their hobbies or things that they used to like. For example, someone who used to love to play football, if that person suddenly stops liking football or suddenly stops watching football matches and strays away from football, that could be a sign that that person is suicidal because they've lost interest in their hobbies. Moving on, talking about death or suicide. People who usually talk too much about death or who keep on talking about suicide are most likely suicidal themselves because they keep on talking about it. So if your friend is always bringing up suicide, be aware. Your friend could be suicidal. Next, saying goodbye to family and friends. Suicidal people are known for their goodbyes. They will keep on saying goodbye and things like, oh, I will never see you again. Like, oh, this is the last time I will see you. Please take care of my family members. I'm leaving. Goodbye. So this is very dangerous because this could be a sign that that person is ready to take their own life. Moving on, saying that they are a burden. Suicidal people always feel like they are a burden on other people's shoulders. They feel like they are causing trouble and they feel like they are not appreciated. So this is a warning sign too, if people say that they are a burden. Moving on, withdrawal, social withdrawal from friends and family. Usually, people who want to commit suicide will withdraw themselves from society and isolate themselves, and they will stay away from friends. They won't talk to family members, they won't talk to friends, they won't come to parties, they won't socialize. They will be like hermits. So this is also a big warning sign of someone who is suicidal. Now, finally, we get to enter the do's and don'ts of suicide prevention. So now I will begin with the do's. What should you do? What should be done when it comes to suicide prevention? Firstly, be aware. Learn the warning signs. As I said earlier, the warning signs are very important. So you have to be aware and you have to memorize what are the warning signs of someone who is suicidal. Next, get involved. Become available. Show interest and support. You have to show that you're interested in a suicidal person. You cannot be nonchalant and just or like not giving care for that person. You have to be focused and interested. Only then will the suicidal person feel like they are appreciated. Next, ask if he or she is thinking about suicide. You have to ask. You cannot just stop. You cannot just be very discreet. No, there is no time for being discreet. You have to be straightforward. You have to ask, are they thinking about suicide? Only then will you know for sure if that person is suicidal. Then be direct. Talk openly and freely about suicide. There's no need for secrets. You have to be straightforward. You have to be open-minded. Be willing to talk about the heavy topics because suicide is all about being open and straightforward. Next, be willing to listen. Allow expressions of feelings. Accept the feelings. Be a good listener. Don't just talk over the suicidal person. You have to listen. Listen to their opinions. Listen to their points of view. Only then will you be able to help them properly. Next, be non-judgmental. Never debate whether suicide is right or wrong, or feelings are good or bad. Don't lecture the suicidal person. You see, you must not be a judgmental person. If you judge the person who is about to commit suicide, that person will just feel worse. And they might actually end up really committing suicide because you are judging them for their actions. Remember, suicidal people never wanted this. It came to them because of their suffering in life or their own history. Nobody ever really wants to commit suicide. It comes like a disease to these people. Therefore, you must never ever judge people who are suicide. Be non-judgmental. Next, you must encourage suicidal people to get professional help. Professional help is the right way forward because ultimately there's only so much that you can do as a friend, because just as a friend or family member, you are not a mental health professional. When it comes to psychiatrists, psychologists, and counselors, these people have real experience in dealing with suicidal individuals. Therefore, you have to recommend your suicidal friends to go and see a psychiatrist. There's nothing wrong with seeing a psychiatrist. It is perfectly normal. A psychiatrist is just another doctor, but the doctor this time is treating your mental problems. That is all. So there's nothing wrong with seeing a psychiatrist or seeing a psychologist. You must encourage this, in fact. Encourage your suicidal friends to go forward and seek professional help. Moving on. Now we go to the don'ts. What should you not do? What must you never ever do when it comes to suicide? The don'ts of suicide prevention. Firstly, do not dare him or her to do it. Never ever dare a suicidal person to commit suicide. This is something that you should never ever do, because even if you're just jokingly saying it, oh, I dare you to jump, the suicidal person might take it seriously and they will actually really go and jump. So daring is an unwise thing and a childish thing to do. Never ever dare a suicidal person to actually commit suicide. Next, never ask why. Never ever ask the WHY question, because this will make the suicidal person become defensive and they won't be open to you. They will just be defensive. They will go far away from you. Because when you ask why, it almost seems like you are judgmental, because every suicidal person has their own suffering in life and their own past. So we must never ask why. Why do you want to commit suicide? Just be a good listener. Next, do not act shocked. Just be normal, because if you act like you are too shocked and surprised, this will put a distance between you and the suicidal person. So just act normal. Do not act like you are too surprised or too shocked. This may even negatively affect the suicidal person. Just be calm and collected. Moving on, do not be sworn to secrecy. There should not be secrets. Do not tell that person, oh, I'll keep this a secret, or let's keep this a secret, or don't tell me this is a secret, that's a secret. Secrecy leads to other problems. You have to be completely open with the suicidal person, and even that suicidal person cannot be keeping secrets from you. So there should not be secrecy when it comes to suicide prevention. Next, never ever blame the suicidal person. It is not their fault. If you blame them, they will feel even worse and they will end up really committing suicide. No one is to blame. Suicide can come to anyone, even to you and me. Someday we could even be suicidal. Therefore, you must never ever put the blame on the suicidal person. You cannot tell them that, oh, you did this to yourself, or oh, you are causing pain to others. No, the blame should be on nobody. Just focus on the solution, not on the problem. Suicide is a serious issue. It is an issue that affects people of all ages, races, and religions. Even though it seems like a huge challenge, like a huge barrier, something that is so difficult to overcome, it can be overcome. Suicide prevention can be successful if every single one of us know the do's and don'ts of suicide prevention. Even the Malaysian government has to take the initiative to organize campaigns so that the rakyat, so that the people will be aware of suicide prevention, so that the people will be aware that there is a way out, that suicide is not the right direction. Suicide is never the right choice. There is always another way. That is all from me. Thank you for listening.